Hello, everyone. My name is nwaobiala. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a Nigerian American, trans, non binary, multidisciplinary artist. My art spans across a bunch of mediums from film and digital collaging. I'm getting into painting and music. I started with slam poetry. I don't do a lot of that anymore, but really, I'm in the visual scene right now. A lot of my work focuses on African queerness, Nigerian queerness, gender identity, fashion, how we express ourselves through art mediums, um, male preference, all the isms out here that we are all navigating. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you. So now that we got a little intro, I'm going to share some of your images with the rest of the group. So I'm going to screen share you guys. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to pull this up.
So I'll say a little bit about this. This is actually a recent collage. And this is, I was obsessed for a little bit on like Black women who suddenly disappeared from the music scene. And this is Jackie Shane. She is a Black trans woman who was born in the American South in the 1940s. And she was this amazing soul singer who all of a sudden just left the scene, like just wasn't there anymore. But just the fact that she was, a singer and was actually kind of popular was really, really amazing. And yeah, this is like one of my digital collages. I really love this one because the background are some pictures that I took in Cuba. And then you have the skies, you have her kind of looking like, I don't know, like the Statue of Liberty is an awful like example, but just like some type of symbol and royalty. And I'm just really honored to know about like the history of how she came about and her work. So definitely stream her. She's amazing. So this is a screenshot from, I don't even know if I could call it a short film. It was like a video piece. It's called All About Desire, which is kind of modeled after All About Love by Bell Hooks, which was something I was reading at the time. And this piece came out of just like a failed romantic relationship. I was really contemplating, I don't know, the reasons why I was even in it to begin with. Like, what am I looking for? What do I feel like is missing within me? I've always felt myself to be a little bit like desperate for love, like romantic love in particular. So just like exploring that. And there's this really amazing quote that Bell Hooks, let me see if I could pull it up real quick, had said, and it's the quote that describes the film. But to be capable of critically evaluating a partner, we would need to be able to stand back and look critically at ourselves, at our needs, desires, and longings. We fear that evaluating our needs and then carefully choosing partners will reveal that there is no one for us to love. Most of us prefer to have a partner who is lacking than no partner at all. What becomes apparent is that we may be more interested in finding a partner than in knowing love. And that just like hit me so hard because I feel like a lot of people end up in that situation. I even think like my mom has ended up in that situation where it's prioritized that you get married versus, finding a love or finding something that will really fulfill you. So I don't want to go down that path, and I really do want to try to figure out what are my needs, what do I feel like I'm lacking, and move from there. So that's where this piece is coming from. All right. This is like like my pride and joy. But I conducted this project in 2019 called We Are More Than Bodies, and it explored like the effects of cultural homophobia on queer Nigerian Americans across the United States. So I went to Portland, I went to Philly, I went to Maryland, I did some in Massachusetts. I was just interviewing friends of friends, people that I met after putting it out on the internet, and just talking to them about what has it been navigating as a queer Nigerian American. It turned out that a lot of them were in the closet, but the quote that comes with this piece was actually a queer Nigerian man who had just come out to his family. And it was just so interesting hearing his story and like just what he had to go through and even what came of that at the end, because I feel like, I don't know, we spend a lot of time being really afraid, and rightfully so, because we stand to lose a lot. But what had come out on the end for him was he just felt so much more proud of himself. Like, he felt like he could stand in a room and he knew himself, and everyone knew him. Even if they don't really understand, even if they like are judging him, he is who he is, and he has announced that. And I think something that I struggle with as well is just like extended family too, who are very judgmental. And he was like, I don't care about their opinions anymore. Like, this is just who I am, and this is what's going to make me happy. So this project was absolutely amazing, very close to my heart, as I'm also queer Nigerian American. So yeah. Oh, and the last thing about that piece is each of the collages has a little symbol. I think y'all could see it like in the corner where the hair is. And it's a pre-colonial Nigerian language called Nsibidi. And the symbol itself means love, and it's on each of the collages. Okay, and this last one, this is my grandpops. He's amazing. He's still living. Shout out to my grandfather. But honestly, he's like my favorite relative, to be honest. And I like interviewed him last year I just wanted to hear about his life. Like, I honestly don't really know that much about him. So I did like a little interview of him, and I learned so much just about how colonization has affected him, like how he grew up, like the things that happened to him as he was growing up. My grandfather wasn't around for the Biafra War. He actually ended up in Poland studying abroad. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, but it was just like interesting hearing about his journey and then his return back as well. And currently he's in the United States with his wife and one of my uncles, but it was just really amazing hearing his story. Amazing, sad, like I felt a lot of different things. And even the things that he didn't tell me, because I remember when I finished interviewing him, I had brought some things up about him to my mom, and my mom would say things about his mother, which he didn't talk about as much because there was a little bit of tension there. But even the things that he omitted, I was like, wow, there's so much more to my family history. But this was part of a bigger piece, which I would call like a videographic collage. And what I was exploring was this idea of ancestors. I remember the first time my friend had told me that I should make an ancestral like altar, and I thought to myself, like, my ancestors don't want anything to do with me. Like, I'm queer. I've always been told that, like, you know, queer people don't exist. It's like not African, but as I came to realize and as I kept growing, I realized that like that's just not true. Like, queer people have always been there, and I don't know. I believe in us, that I think our ancestors want the world to be better for all of us, for, you know, their grandchildren, for their great great grandchildren. Like, I think they want us to be better, and I think that it's in our hands. So just exploring that, and also asking for guidance.
Mm.
And the fact that I learned from, I believe it was like a conversation between Nikki Giovanni and Angela Davis. And Nikki Giovanni said, like, ancestors aren't just people who are related to you by blood, they're people you love. And that just like hit me differently. So I even look at ancestors as something completely different. I used to think that I would have to ask my parents and my grandfather for the names of my ancestors, but I think it's so much deeper than that.
Mm. Wow. And so I'm, as a Nigerian American person, queer person myself, I'm so interested in the idea of identity and what it means in connection to my work. And do you feel like how you've been shaping your identity and who you are in your queerness is directly related to the work that you're creating?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think this. Mostly because I don't know. I think when you start to deviate from what is the culture that they say that you should be abiding by, the culture that they say that, you know, this is who you are, when you start deviating from that, I think it creates a rift. It creates some type of space between who you know you are and that culture, which is also yours. So I think I really moved from that space of just trying to figure things out. Like, why do I feel like this? Like, it doesn't feel wrong to me, but it looks wrong to the people around me. Like, what's the meaning of that? And it just makes me want to dig deeper into the truth, because I know I'm not the only queer Nigerian out here. Like, I know that, but like, why does everyone else think that I am? Yeah.
Yeah, I still find it, I feel like I'm also at the beginning of the process of like trying to navigate and explore it. And I just went to Nigeria for the first time last year. Um, my father's Nigerian, my mom's American. But already feeling like there's a disconnect between me and the culture. And then also being like, can I tell these people like, like 100% of my
Right.
identity? Like, cause I'm just getting here. Like, I'm not trying to cause any static. And then, but then you want to still be fully who you are. And so there's this like sort of balancing act that you have to do.
Absolutely.
And I think that art is definitely a saving grace in a lot of ways, just in general. But then, especially when you have something that you're like trying to work through, and you're like, okay, let me just make some art right now. Like, let me just put it into some work. So I definitely feel that. I'm interested to hear more about your "We Are More Than Bodies" piece, or what should I call it? The portfolio of work for that.
Yeah, so the project, it was also a difficult project to navigate, because these are people who are, they're not out. Like, there are a lot of them who are just not out. So I had to figure out, how can I still tell these stories and provide visuals that people could kind of relate to without putting them in danger. So that's why I came up with the idea of, I took pictures of the people's favorite body parts, and then I put them together in collages. And even that experience was actually really interesting. Just like how intimate some people were able to get with me, how some people were like, I have multiple favorite body parts, or I don't know my favorite body part. Or I had this one friend who had, it must have been like 5 or 6. And it was just so cool being able to see even people's relationships with their bodies. But the interviews were just, it felt like healing in a way, just knowing that these people, they're going through the same things. We are all literally all going through the same stuff. It's just that we're in different places. We don't really know about each other. I remember I was interviewing someone in Portland, and they were saying that they've never met a queer Nigerian. They meet very few Black queer people, not to mention Black, like African queer people. And then I ended up interviewing someone else who was also queer Nigerian American, and I connected them, and I was like, this is just so important for y'all to know that you are literally right here, and like, we're all doing the same stuff. And then another thing was, after each interview, folks would tell me that like, this work is so important, and it was such an amazing affirmation, because sometimes I feel like some people don't get why this is like important. I don't know, sometimes I feel like people don't understand just how lonely it can get, how saddening it is just to know that you're kind of outlawed. So hearing that affirmation was like, okay, I'm definitely on the right track. I'm definitely doing the work that I'm enjoying. Other people are glad that it's happening, that it's out there. But yeah.
Wow, I so appreciate that. I mean, just hearing you talk about it and seeing how we only see certain types of Black people in the media often, and then Nigerian culture on top of it, and then just, visibility.
Hmm.
And it is so important. I feel like even if you're just touching one person, if you're getting to one person, then the opportunity for it to spread to multiple people opens up. So I so appreciate that work, and I would love to see more of it. So thank you for doing that, because it is super important
Thank
for
you.
sure. So do you feel like you're in tune with yourself and your identity now more than before when you were creating different kinds of work?
Hmm. Interesting question.
Mm.
I definitely feel like I'm way more in tune nowadays. And even just the ability to name things. Like before growing up, I knew that I didn't really identify with being a girl, but like I didn't know what I could be outside of that. I didn't know that people like I don't know had different pronouns. This was all really new when I went to college and I was in the slam poetry scene. So like Cupsy, the Collegiate Union Poetry Slam Invitational, all these poets are they're hella gay. But like that was the first time I had realized that people have words for these things and like this isn't the first time someone's experienced this. Like this isn't new. This isn't happening just with like the youth nowadays. Like these are experiences that have been happening for a while. Um, so I like being able to name that and then finding community from that naming. Um, but then also the naming gets tricky too. I remember when I was thinking about changing my pronouns, I was like, I don't know, like what if I change my mind? Like I'm also not very confrontational. So when people misgender me, I'm just like, well, like, I don't know, it makes me feel weird, but what am I going to do about it? Um, yeah, so I feel like labels are kind of double-edged swords as well, like, because things are quite fluid, but then also there is that need for like finding community. So how, like, just the utility of labels is something that I've been learning a lot about through my journey in creating art. But I definitely just feel way more connected now than ever before. And the more that I learn about it, and I'm in the process right now of learning more about queer Nigerian history as well. People like Arya Scatter, who was this trans woman musician that existed in Nigeria, and everyone was fine with it. Like she used to go through the streets of Nigeria just singing songs. People remember her. People listened to her. People had her perform for her, and it was just like a normal thing. So just learning more about that, it's making me feel even more connected to my Nigerian history. Like I think I've been connected more to queer history, queer culture, kind of, but I'm still that little oddball out there because I'm also Nigerian. So, what is the Nigerian queer culture? And then I'm not there as well. I'm like, I've been reading a lot about the queer scene in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. I'm reading a lot about that, but because I'm not there, so how do I connect with that? And that's what I've been exploring these days.
We're gonna need to share resources. Okay. I need to know all of these things as well. It's so exciting though to not feel like you're the only person who's like going through something. I mean, because it couldn't possibly ever be that we are the only ones. Like it's just not. It's not even possible. But different institutions and entertainment and images, whatever, make you feel like you're just like the one person and the odd person out or whatever. So like again, visibility and education for what you're saying and like reading a lot and like getting to know. So I think it definitely taps into that. Okay, like I'm feeling validated
Mm-hmm.
now because I'm not the only person and there is a community to be built. Mm. Mm. And I love that the ability to name things. Also, when you don't have the language, it's difficult to try and navigate something where you're like, I have these thoughts and I have these feelings, but I don't have the language for it yet. Yeah, I'm finding that a lot now too, just in healing in general. And I'm like, oh, okay, like I can express that in a more articulated way and
Mm-hmm.
not feel like I'm so lost in whatever I'm feeling. So I appreciate that you reflected that back as well. Mm. And so I feel like maybe you've answered this already, but I'm wondering if there's any specific things you've learned about yourself through your work or about your work through your self exploration.
Hmm. I think it's that my work is important. I don't know why or where that comes from, just feeling like maybe I'm not doing enough, maybe this isn't groundbreaking enough, like interviewing queer Nigerian Americans about their experience. Maybe it's not like, I don't know, saving the world or something. Like, I don't know, sometimes feeling like my art isn't doing enough of the work that maybe it needs to do, but I think through those experiences, I've learned that it really is doing the work that people need, that people want to see, that people are interested in. It's also a matter of like who is the community that it's being presented to. Because the first project, my We Are More Than Bodies project, I got funding through my school. My school is a PWI. Of course, people aren't really like, you're not the community, not really the white people there. So just making sure that also when I'm making my work that I'm bringing it back to the community, because that's who wants to see it. That's who cares. Yeah.
Mm, I feel that your work is so important.
Thank
When
you.
you said, when you said interviewing Nigerian queer artists, I was like, that's literally what I'm doing right now. So our work is, I think, important. Absolutely. Um, mm, can you talk a little bit about any of the like adverse experiences that you've had in either just like expressing your identity or in creating your work?
Mm, hmm. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I honestly tend to block these types of people out, like the trolls and
Me
stuff like
too.
that. Yeah,
I'm
like I
just
really,
like, they exist. I don't know them.
really have to protect your energy with that. But I don't know. I think the hardest thing really has been because it was not a given name and I had to adopt it so that I wouldn't be tracked like by my family and stuff like that. I did have a little scare where one of my aunties had found my Instagram, was asking her daughter like, you know, like what does queer mean and all these things. So just like the constant threat of you might be outed or something might happen. I think that's just been the worst part. But I don't experience a lot of the trolls, and if I do, I usually just like block them immediately. They're not worth my energy. But yeah.
Are you working on anything you can tell us about now or anything that you want to be doing in the near future?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
So what I'm working on right now, which has been such a journey, I'm looking at Nigerian women, specifically the protests, rebellions, etc., that happened throughout the 1900s, and just like uncovering like what the hell was going on during this time and what
Mm.
have women been doing historically. So that's the project that I'm working on right now, and it's been amazing. I just got a fellowship as well, which should be announced soon, but I hope to extend that project to bring kind of
Yes.
like, thank you, the visual element to it. I do have another project that I hope to do eventually, which I probably shouldn't say, but I might hit you up about it.
Hey.
But yeah, and then I don't know, these are just like some of my artistic goals. I'm learning the bass guitar, which is something I'm working on, learning how to paint, which is really cool because I'm interested to see how I can combine my mediums a little bit more. I also want something more physical. Like there's something about filmmaking and collaging. I have to be on my laptop, and I'm trying to not do that. I'm trying to spend more time just with myself and something physical and tangible.
Mm.
So I've been doing that. I'm really bad at it, but it's fine. And then I don't know, this is just me, but like one of my goals in life is to be in a band. So I'm also working towards that, manifesting. I should practice more, but like, yeah. Yeah.
All the things.
All the
I
things.
love it. I love it. I love it. I guess this is a very specific art question. And I'm always interested in um, how visual artists decide, first of all, like what the final picture
Mm,
is that you're like putting in the exhibit, in the gallery. And then also because you work with different mediums, how do you decide what visual components are going with your idea? Like, okay, you have this idea for the We Are More Than Bodies. How do you decide that that's going to be a collage? And how do you decide what parts are, like, how do you feel that out?
mm. Yeah, for some of them, it's just the constraints that are there. We are more than bodies. I would have loved for it to be like a video project, but due to keeping people's identities confidential, I was like, okay, maybe a collage would be easier to navigate that. So that's where that was coming from. And then the collages are so freeform. You can never know what they're gonna look like in the end, and that is it's fun in that way. It's like a playground. And I think that's why I like it better than painting, because if something doesn't look good, I could just delete it. But painting, but but in terms of like, so for my film All About Desire, I actually saw everything that it would look like in my head, and then I just executed it. So there are some that are very planned to the T, like I can see it, I can envision it, and that's what it'll be. But for even like my videographic collage, Wildest Dreams, which my grandfather was in, I had no idea that was going to look like. It was literally a video collage. So I just put together pieces. I had a concept. That's usually what it is. I have a concept, and then I'll build from there. While I feel like film sometimes doesn't give you the same like leeway in that sense, because you actually have to put things together. So it's either from a concept, or I'm like, I have a concept and I'm playing around, or I know exactly what it's going to look like, and this is what we're going to put together.
That's interesting. Do you ever have times where you're like, I know exactly what this is going to look like, and then you do it and you're like, that's not what I want?
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm.
Sometimes. I think definitely with film, it can easily be like that. Like, I don't know, you can imagine a scene in your head, and like when you actually film it, it just doesn't look that cool. It doesn't look that good. You don't have the right lens, etc. Um, but I think that's why I kind of lean towards either doing like collage type video pieces, or just like very simple ones that can be executed correctly. Because that's the other thing about filmmaking, like you need a whole team, and usually it's just me. Yeah.
So how do you know when something's finished?
Mm. So with the collages, I really just sit and stare at it. I stare at it like just every day until I feel like, okay, let me move something around, or let me delete this, let me try this. But really just sitting with it and just looking at that shit, like just trying to figure out what you feel from it, and like what does it represent for you. Yeah, that's what I spend a lot of my time doing.
Just looking.
Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I saw something a long time ago. I can't remember what I was looking at, like, I don't know, decor pictures or something. And some designer was like, I know it's done when I don't have anything left to take away.
Mm.
And that just stuck with me a lot. And I think about that often when I'm writing in particular. Um, and just editing work, and it's like, okay, like what else is there, that like what does not need to be here? Like
Mm.
what's crowding the space with like too many words, or it's just like can make more space to just like get straight to the point. And I always remember that when I'm creating. So I'm always interested in other artists and how they see something and like, okay, it's finished. Because then, like, I don't know, if it's acting or something, like the work is never really done.
Right.
Especially if you're doing theater, it's different every night. It could be. So there's that as well. Um, okay. Let's see. Given the current social climate and the madness that is currently going on top of the pandemic, and I've asked all the artists about how they feel about creating work right now in this like heightened
Mhm.
state when everyone is like everyone, I don't want to speak for anyone but myself. It feels like things are very on edge, and lots of things are getting exposed, and everyone wants to talk about social justice like every single day, all the time. And people are trying to navigate who to work with and how new ways to work with people and what it means to create right now. So I'm interested to know if there is any difference between, creating before and what it feels like to be creating right now. Like, do you feel like you have any obligation to like answer,
Mm,
like have an answer in your artwork to what's going on or to sort of respond to it?
mm,
Or if you're just like, I'm just creating.
mm. Yeah, this is one of those questions. Like, what is the artist's purpose during this time, during movements? Which is something I'm still honestly trying to figure out. Like, I don't know. Um, but I try not to put pressure on myself to create, because there is forced art, like art that forces itself to represent the moment and stuff, and you can always tell. So I feel like what I'm at right now is kind of just trying to learn more. Like I lean towards the abolitionist mindset, but I feel like I haven't read enough. So I'm trying to do the best that I can in terms of just learning. And I think that's kind of what my art, like the way that I see my art is there is the study of things that will inspire the art. There is the working on your technical craft, like how to do the thing itself. And then there is the creation of it. And I feel like right now I'm personally in the kind of studying when it comes to larger topics. I don't want to leave people astray or anything. So I need to read. I need to know what I'm talking about and what I want to, communicate through my art. But I also feel like there are also the smaller things that are happening in our lives as well that I would like to speak about because I'm experiencing it kind of firsthand. When we think about loneliness during the pandemic, just not being able to be around people. I was like going through a breakup during this whole like pandemic thing. So there's also the larger things that are happening, but also the small day-to-day things that we are feeling, and I think I lean more towards representing that, since I don't know, I don't think I'm qualified enough to speak on the larger things quite yet. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, mm, I relate to that very much because you don't ever want to be fabricating in art making and
Mm,
just putting something together just because, or like, the idea that people are like, oh, let's use all these Black artists right now
mm,
just to look a certain way. And it's like, but you need to be doing this all the time. This
mhm.
is not just like a quick photo op.
Right.
And I think that just, because even if I were or you were or anyone to come into a space like that, and then it's like, okay, like what is really the intention here?
Hmm.
What are we really doing? Is this really coming from a place of honesty,
Mm.
or just so we can, get the visual of pretending that we're about something that we're not?
Right. And there's something about social media that makes people feel like they need to put something out like right now. Like it has to, like, this is what's happening right now. And you need to be able to create something to represent it at this moment. And I don't know, like, this stuff is going to still be happening next year. Like, it's not going to end. You know what I mean? So why don't we also take the time to, process what's going on, be in conversation with other people. I've been doing a lot of just like, donating to people's mutual aid and people's individual GoFundmes, and just trying to help the cause as much as I can. But yeah, I don't think I need to put anything out, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel that way as well. And also just like new projects, I just want to finish what I was already doing.
Yes.
Like I want to finish the things that were already in progress when this started. And I think that adding any additional pressure onto that, I mean, it's a moment right now on top of what social media is doing, where everything does feel so charged, and
Yes,
so it does feel like we need to be like doing so much, and that's just exhausting
it really is.
and it's unnecessary. Any specific hopes in creating work like in Nigeria? Or
Oh,
like, yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. That was like
Uh,
one of the projects that I couldn't tell you, but absolutely. I don't know. I also feel like this was something I was talking to who about frequency. She's a poet, really amazing Kenyan poet. But she talked about like going back to Kenya and also just forming her own relationship with Kenya. Because oftentimes when I go back to Nigeria, I'm going with family, or when I was there before, I was going to school, and I was boarding school, so it was just very like closed off. So I really believe that I need to go back, form my own connections, find my community, the peoples who were there doing like who make up the queer community. And there's a film coming out, Ife. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's this queer film coming out of Nigeria, which is absolutely amazing. Like people don't like it is so groundbreaking that this is happening. And I wish I could be there. Like I wish I could like be on set with them and stuff like that. But I need to go back. I need to do interviews. I need to talk to people. I I have to.
Gabs is a question, and they said, I'm wondering if you have small things like routine stuff that you feel is important for your work as an artist that are maybe not really related or expected to be to being an artist.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I need a lot of downtime. I'm gonna be honest. Like I just need to. I started learning how to longboard, and that's just been really beautiful, just for my mental health. I read a lot of Afro fantasy books that have nothing to do with anything, but I just love reading them. So for me, I always like there is the time to create and make this work, but there's also like I just need to make sure that I'm getting the rest that I need, and I'm feeding my brain with just like other things. I'm a Libra. That's like I'm a sun sign.
You know
Um,
what? I knew that.
how?
I don't know. I just felt Libra energy. I felt it. I'm a Sagittarius. I don't know if you're asking me that, Cabs.
Sag. Okay.
We get along, Libras and Sag. Also, just like I feel like Libras are so incredibly creative, and like aesthetically, like y'all just have like a really good eye uh, for things. My first interview with Tariq Carroll, he's a Libra. They told me the other day, and I was like, I knew. Like your eye, I knew it. The way you just put images together and they're just gorgeous. I was like, this makes sense. Makes total sense.
I usually don't get a lot of compliments, so I gotta take.
What? Oh no. And Lisa asked, and I think that's kind of related to the last question, but what do you do to spark creativity in yourself?
Yeah, definitely reading a lot, reading about history, interacting with people, having conversations with my friends have sparked just so many things, because that's how We Are More Than Bodies really started. I have like quite a few queer Nigerian friends, and I was like, wow, what if we had just made this into a project and we could all like connect with each other and like figure things out from there. So just having those conversations with folks, reading. Tumblr has a lot of like pretty good visuals out here. Like I learned a lot from Tumblr and Twitter. Um,
I love Tumblr.
yeah,
Constantly
Tumblr is
on it.
nice. It's like it's different from Instagram too, because I don't know. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed by Instagram, but Tumblr just feels like a nice. I don't know. We all know what we're about here.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't on Tumblr like flexing and all that. Like
Yeah,
nobody's doing the most. People are just like, here's a beautiful picture. That's it,
I
and it's
appreciate it.
done. Yeah, I'm finding, especially when quarantine started, and everyone felt like we all felt like we need to do like 5 different things and like learn all the languages and like do
I
the
feel
most.
every day.
And
Like
I was like, wait. I was like, no, this, first of all, this goes against like how I am in general and just like my speed, because I'm a slowpoke and I just like to just like bring it down, like hold on, and require a lot of just time in between. So I really understand what you mean. It's just like time and space, just like clear the mind and then like get back to work. And like the balance of that, being on 100 all the time is not really, I've found, sustainable. Well, I'm really looking forward to hearing about more of your work in the future. And I'm definitely going to keep up with what you're doing. And I'm super excited. Congratulations on your fellowship you said you got recently. Yay. I'd be so hyped when artists get fellowships or just like time and space and money to do what they need to do, because we be out there like, 300 people trying to get one grant, and it's just like really nice when you hear about it. So that's dope. And everybody should also go and follow on Instagram as well. The info is on the Eventbrite page, but I can send it to you all. And do you have anything else you want to share with us, nwaobiala?
No, thank you all so much for coming through. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
It
thank
was,
you for having me. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for curating these events that you're always doing. Like, you are amazing. Thank you so much.
thank you. It's my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Um, yeah, it's just really nice to collaborate. I just love it so much. And I see that no name poster on your wall.
You know?
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love it. You're super inspiring, just so you know.
Thank you so much.
Super inspiring. All right, guys. That's a wrap. Thanks, nwaobiala.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
You too. Bye.